Okay, so just a small recap of what we have been doing. I'll not go through the entire topics again and again, but we'll
Oh,
just give you a high level overview of what we have seen so far, and then how do we look into it. Okay,
okay.
so the first thing what we covered as part of our curriculum was okay. I'm not sharing my screen. As part of our curriculum, what we have done is we have seen what does a subscription mean, and then what are resource groups. So in short, if I have to tell, subscription is nothing but the license what we take for a specific account. For example, let me log into this portal, sign in. Says please keep turning off the servers as soon as you're done with your labs. Coming back to the topic here, we first looked into subscription. So whenever you create your free account, it will be like a free thing what you look at. But how do you verify that is when you come into your billing subscriptions. This is where it'll come. You'll come to know whether you're here. It'll talk about your subscription. Whenever you log into your accounts, and then if we talk about your enterprise account for your organizations, you might be having multiple subscriptions available here. So when I say multiple subscriptions, it will talk about if you have multiple teams, and then you can talk about it. So let's say I'll add a new subscription here for now. Let's say I'll create this subscription for Malik's use. So that way I'll come to know how much is Malik spending on this particular account. So if I come here and
Can't
say
you can't you go with a resource group though?
no, we resource group is something that comes after subscription. So
Okay.
the first thing we do is subscription, and then after subscription is done, your subscriptions are added. Then we start creating your resource groups. Inside that resource group, we will say which subscription do I want to use.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So no problem. So now in this, you have these options. It says Azure for students. It will say select this offer, but it will not allow me to select this offer because I'm already in a pay as you go. But let us try if this will allow me to take this offer. So when I say Azure, when I select this offer as Azure for students, it will automatically go to Azure sign up page, and it will ask you to sign up here. So I will see if I can create a new account for you, and then give that Malik as a free account, or I'll give a new subscription here for you. Okay, now in this, I say pay as you go, select this offer, and then it'll ask you to sign up again. And then in your organizations, when you do it, you will have a master account here. Like let's say you are working in abc.com. So you will have a master account for abc.com, and underneath that, you keep adding multiple accounts. And then when you're doing that, you will be using different email IDs for different accounts, so that you have a high level overview of which account is utilizing how many dollars. So that is all about subscriptions. Any Okay, so in this particular same subscription thing, you also have something called as cost management, wherein you can go ahead and then say, okay, this specific account will not be, this is for a learning purpose. So this account should not be using high-end servers or something like that. So the costing should be on lower side. So you can go ahead and then set up all those policies, all those rules from this particular page. So set up your account, analyze your cost for specific account, and how do you actually control and optimize your costs. All will we do this in a real time? The answer is no, but yes, this is good to know information wherein you can say that this will also be managed by the same page. Okay, and then you have your reporting plus analytics. So what is the cost analysis end of the year? If your organization wants to understand how much did we spend on Azure, yes, Microsoft gave a good option for us. Purchase our M365 license, will give you Azure free of cost. Fair enough. So how much did we spend? What is the cost of Azure services we have taken? So all those things can be pulled up from this particular page. So this is something what we can use for our costing purposes on the whole. Find resource group. I would say resource group is nothing but the primary the primary objective, or the primary how do I put that? If I say a resource again, I'll come up with the same thing. Let me show it to you guys here. So if I click on create a resource, okay, let us say you're working on a project called you're working on a project where you're designing a website. So now when you're
Okay.
working on the project, and you have to create this inside, you have to create a project using Azure. So the first and foremost thing what we need is the infrastructure. Am I right?
Yeah.
When I say infra, what do you mean? What do I mean by infra?
Need the networking components, the switches.
Yes,
You
it's
need
the entire
the VM,
compute.
the
So
compute.
we need the entire compute for running the application, correct? So now when I have
Okay.
this, when I need this entire compute for running the application, I might be working on multiple projects at the same time, correct? This I would say
Okay.
website one, then I could say website two, or something like that. So now
Okay.
how do I categorize my projects for the technical team? So how
And
if you
resource
are
group.
yes, you are part of the technical team. So how do I differentiate different projects or different technical aspects of it? So that is where your resource group comes into place.
Okay.
When we talk about subscription, for the question what you had, subscription is completely non-technical, where it is only reflecting the cost what is being used. So when I go ahead and then try to
Okay.
create a web server from here, a virtual machine,
So like a organizational unit.
organ I can say yes. Why is it not? Something went wrong. Why? Okay. Now, if you look at this, the first one says subscription. This says which account, or which department do you want the billing to be done, or which department do you want the billing to be encountered for. That is what you refer to subscription here. Whereas when you say resource group,
Okay.
what now this is the department, and in the resource group I define what kind of project am I doing. Is this a website designing? Is this a database application? Or what am I doing this? So this particular resource group, I talk about the project name what I'm working on. Make sense?
Yeah, I got you.
Moving forward, after we have seen our resource groups, then we went into our virtual networks and then storage services. So before that, let me quickly go through this specific screen again, because Malik did not practice it completely, and then he might have forgot completely what we do here. So when I go this into subscription, it will only show us one subscription, because that's the only thing what I have now. In resource group, all these
Okay.
resource groups are already created and available, so that is why it's showing up like this. You can either use them or create a new service, a resource group. That's up. Yeah, so you can create a fresh one, and then you have to just give this a name. I'll say new underscore RG, and I'll say okay. So it has picked up, it will create the resource group now, and virtual machine name. Let me say VM1. Now, I believe you guys are clear on region and the availability zones, right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, we are
so
clear
you
on
know,
that.
okay. So now I select South India because that is the closest for me. And whenever you work on it, you can select whichever is the closest for you guys. US East, US West, whatever it is. Okay. And then I don't go for availability options at this time, because I'm just learning, and then it is not required. And we'll talk about those whenever we get into that area. Security type, I'm not doing anything. And the most important thing is your image type. So I click on
Hmm.
see all images, the most important thing, and then this will take me to the marketplace. So what is a marketplace? What do you guys remember? it is the place where you can get your software or operating system images, your normal software applications. So all of those things is put up in marketplace. So in other terms, what do you think? Why do you think marketplace is important? To simplify this a little more, we have taken the Azure subscription because you feel that everything is available for you under one umbrella, right? You
Mhm.
go into a car showroom, and then you don't buy you don't go into a car showroom to purchase individual items from individual place and then assemble them all together, right? You go into a car showroom where you have everything assembled, including the logo of the brand, and then you purchase the car from there, right? You don't go to one store, purchase wheels from them. You don't one store, you don't purchase a steering from them. That's not how we do it, correct? So Azure or
Right.
any cloud vendor gives us a similar option where they say, you come into my store once, you have everything what you need. So now, how are these guys getting that? They collaborate with different application vendors. They have a tie-up with them stating, I will have customers, users use my account, and using my account, they will deploy your instances. So whenever they deploy an instance or whenever they use an application that you are developing, what is that you're going to charge me? So they are going to give, okay, if they're using it on a long-term basis, this would be my charge, hourly basis would be my charge, blah, blah, blah. So once that is sorted out, then they bring up the application, put that up in Azure, and whenever you need to have an application, again, if you go back to our drawing board here, for an application to run, I would need infrastructure. Am I right? So Azure would say, okay, for running a specific application, let's say SQL, I would need the Microsoft Windows operating system, or I would need Linux operating system. So I'm going to integrate everything here. So all these different parties will collaborate together and then say, okay, this is the bare minimum infrastructure application components, what we can combine together, make that available. So where are they making it available? They're making it available in something called as a marketplace where you can go ahead and then search for what you want. And once you start deploying things, it will tell you what is the cost that it's going to incur for me. And then how is that I'm going to benefit out of this particular thing. So now let me select SQL Server. I don't know why my account is behaving weird today. One second, one second. No,
Okay.
I am in proper internet. Okay. Now, if I open SQL Server, guys, just be on the call. I'm just changing my internet. Okay, so now if you look at this, whenever you want to go to marketplace, and then as an Azure developer or as an Azure DevOps engineer, Azure admin, whenever you pick up the roles. So if somebody says, hey Brandon, I want to deploy a SQL Server instance, can you let me know how much will it cost me? So you have to go to your marketplace, get into this, and then search. You have to get details. You have to probe them around what is that you're looking for. And then if they say I want SQL Server 2022 on Windows Server 2022, then you go ahead, go to the plans, and then you start looking at what are the different plans I've got here. So it will tell you what are different options I have here, and then it will tell you the usage information. It will tell you who published what, because Azure is Microsoft product, SQL Server is also Microsoft, Windows is also Microsoft. You only get this as Microsoft's publisher as Microsoft SQL Server. It will give you all the documentation what we need. It will give you the pricing details. So everything will be available in this single page. This is one way of looking into it. The other way of looking into it is, let us say I want to deploy Ubuntu Server 2004. I just want to install this. If you come here, it says when it gives clearly gives you all the information on when does the end of life for this. So when I say end of support, if you run into any problems after this date, Microsoft will not be eligible, or Microsoft will not be supporting you anymore. So if you run into any problems, they will not support us. So now let me deselect this and let me say select this option. Let me go with this one. So now when I select this, it will tell me this is the image what I'm selecting out of my available images in the marketplace. Then it talks about architecture. In general, majority of the customers or majority of our installations will go ahead with x64 because most of the application supports x86 platform or underlying architecture. So tomorrow morning, if you have to migrate from one application to another application, and if you have configured the infrastructure in ARM64 and then you want to move to x86, it will not be, if it does not support, if it's not compatible, then you will have to do an entire job again of reconfiguring the application. So x86 is the most preferred way of doing things, and then you go ahead with x86. Then
I
comes
thought
the
I thought it was 8x86.
no, it's x64, 64-bit
What
architecture.
is the most? Okay.
It's 64 stands for 64-bit architecture or 32-bit. If you have 32, it says 32-bit architecture. So right
Okay.
now we are all looking at 64 bits.
Okay.
Okay, and the next important thing what we have to look at is what is the size I'm looking at. So when I open this see all sizes, now this will have different series of images available for us. So what does this series of images mean? What do you understand? You should be remembering this topic. So what do you understand by this series?
Is the version
No,
this series? I saw CPUs here, and is a compute side.
it's compute side, yes.
Okay. I saw CPUs, RAM, and disk. All of these
Okay,
are the compute side here,
so
right?
yes. So whenever you're working on any project, the most important thing while configuring that particular working on that project is your uh, resources. Am I right when I say resources? Your
Yeah.
compute resources,
Okay.
correct?
Correct. Correct.
And how do you decide these compute resources?
It depends on your need, right?
Depending, yes, depending on the needs of the application. Is that let's say you're creating a website. So
Mhm.
and when you're creating a website wherein you are trying to, okay, let's say you're creating a website for a credit card application, for new credit card applications. So in this case, will it be more of writing to the database or reading from the database?
Uh, Reading, I believe.
No, when you are creating a website for new credit cards, it's writing, because as a user, I will log into the website and show my interest for
Oh,
this
yeah,
credit card.
yeah, yeah. That's true. You explained that.
So we might have hundreds of users who are logging in every day and then trying to show their interest. So I need, as a bank, I need to maintain all these records where the customers are requesting or showing their interest. Am I right?
Yes,
So this becomes a high write-centric application. Am I right?
yes, yes.
Now, similarly, if as a bank employee, you would need a read-centric application. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because from as a bank employee, you are reading it from the database. So
Correct,
I will not have the same. I'll not have the same server that will be taking care of both the operations. Correct.
correct.
So that is where we decide what do I need, and that is where the cloud vendors say that we have a series of servers that you can use. So it says fourth generation B series is ideal workloads that do not need continuous full CPU performance, and that is what we are doing in learning purposes, right? We don't have any heavy applications that we configure, so I can just easily go ahead and start looking into it, right?
It's like
Which
a
will
package. They made a package of your resources you need, right?
sorry, yeah, it's kind of a package.
Okay.
Okay, when I talk about D series, version 3, version 4, version 2, it's again a it's a generation D family sizes for your general purpose needs, where you don't have a specific requirement stating this is what I want. Whereas
Okay.
if you have a
Okay.
high memory needs, then we go for E series, and then you keep going it, and then it'll keep expanding. F series is for your better workloads. So depending on, and when I go to F series, the costing will also be the same way. It will be expensive for us. If you look
Okay.
at this, the basic one that starts at $5,000 per month. So if I have to break it down in dollars, it's around $100 per month for me. Whereas if I look at this one, it is like $3 per month. So once you go keep on increasing your series, if you keep changing your series, your billing cycle also keeps changing there. Now, if you look at a D series server, the basic one that if I have to use with bare minimum two virtual CPUs and 8 GB RAM with four data disks, maximum IOP size is the number of IO operations I can do per second. If I look at it, I am spending around $90 per month. When I look at the same thing here, it is a little lower, but your IOPS decrease. When I say IOPS decreases, it is like it's only 1920 IOPS per second, IO operations per second. What I do, so it keeps varying on the usage. It keeps varying on the requirements of the user. Make sense? Any questions on this?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm back.
No
Yeah.
problem. So now in this, so in general, what we do is we go ahead with B1S series because this is the one which is like having 1 GB of RAM with 0.5 GB of RAM whenever you want to uh, connect from your laptops, it will be very, very slow for performing the operations. So you
Oh.
can select either B1 IS or you can select B1S. So it's up to you. If you want to make it even more lower in cost, you can go with this, but you just have to make sure that you give it time for completion.
Oh, it's gonna
Whereas,
be too slow.
yeah, B1S is little faster compared to this because I've got 1 GB of memory.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, you can select either one. So I'll go ahead and select B1, this one, the lowest one. So if you look at it now, it will automatically give you the charges for virtual machine for the whole month. 473 INR is what it is going to add up to. Now,
Okay.
if I come down, do I want to enable hibernation? If I keep enabling these options, this for this particular size, I don't have the option to enable it. So enabling hibernation also depends on the type of image what you are taking, image and the size of the image. So when you keep going to the higher end, you will have most of the operations coming up there. So now
Say it depends on the image. Okay.
image and size.
Inside both. Okay. Okay.
Okay, and for you to log into your accounts again, the way we were doing it in AWS, the same way you have to do it here as well. That you have to create a user and generate a key pair for it. So now, if I don't have an authentication type, will always be SSH public keys. What we will use, username is this. So if you want to change the username, you can just okay. For this, they gave the username. They're giving you the password automatically that comes up for us, and a key pair name, it says VM key one.
It says they give you a password.
Yes, it says generate a new key pair. So when I generate a new key pair,
Okay.
it will load it for me the
Okay.
same way what we're doing it. Or
Okay.
if you have an existing key pair, you can use the existing key pair.
Okay.
So the password is nothing but your key pair.
Okay.
Okay, and do you want to enable any specific inbound port rules or outbound port rules, anything that you want to add up? That is what you do it in this area.
Okay.
So once we are done with this is the first page what we do in while creating your resources. Then I go to the next page which says disks. So by default, Azure will be assigning one data disk for us, which is of 30 GB in size. And it will be allocating premium SSD, which is the best disk what we can get. So if you want to reduce your cost and then you don't want to do it because you're learning, then I can use standard HDD. Now, if you look at this, it is charging you 395 INR per month for using this particular disk of 32 GB. So what I can do is I can say standard HDD. So now when I do standard HDD, you just see the cost reduced by one third. So this is how you have to go ahead and then ensure that your costing is also getting reduced in a better way. Now, encryption again will not support for this specific image type, what I've taken image type and the size. So encryption will not work in this case. But in general, if you want to encrypt your data, then you can also configure encryption at the disk level so that your data is more secure. Okay, and for key management, we'll get into this shortly when we come there again as part of our this one. And the most important thing is whenever you're doing your practice, ensure that delete with VM option is enabled.
Okay.
Okay, so that your disk will also get it. Or else, if you don't delete the disk with your VM and you're deleting the VM, you will still be charged for the VM in the background, for the storage in the background. So to avoid that charges, you need to ensure that your the disk is deleted as soon as your VM is deleted.
Okay.
Okay. And by default, there is always a perception in the market that whenever we use cloud, our data is at risk because I'm storing my data in public platform. The data could be lost. Am I right?
Yeah.
So that is where Azure or any cloud vendor says, as soon as you put some data onto my storage or you put in my area, your data is automatically encrypted so that no one else can be able to look at your data apart from you. So that is what your key management does. So in key management, you have multiple options: platform managed key, customer managed key, platform managed, and customer managed, a mix of both of them. So again, this will not be available. This will be available only for certain areas or certain products what you use here. So for the one what I'm using now, it only supports platform managed key. So what do you understand by platform managed key? Azure has its own algorithms written in the background for enabling the encryption part. So it automatically encrypts the data as soon as you put in using its own predefined algorithms.
Okay.
So when I say custom managed, you say I don't. You are like I don't like your algorithms. I'm not confident on what you guys do. So I will use my own algorithms. That is where you bring in your custom managed algorithms there. And there could be few customers who would say I will use a mix of both of them.
Okay.
So I'll be using the one what you're giving to me as a vendor, and I'll also add my thing on top of it. So this way I am adding additional things. So if you want to read this content again, you need to have a similar kind of algorithm available for reading the content. So if you have a data disk in Azure, and then if you migrate the data disk from Azure to AWS as an example, you will not be able to read the content in AWS instances unless you have the algorithm of the encryption from Azure. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. And next in this page, if you want to add new devices, you can attach a device, create a device and add it. Or if you already have existing devices, you can attach them here.
Okay.
When you start adding them, your billing keeps changing accordingly.
Oh, wow. Gonna increase. Okay.
Okay. Next in networking, for now, you only have your basic networking that is coming up. But whenever I move into my networking part, it will immediately say a public IP is associated. So you have a charge of 303 rupees that is just for data, and it is considering data transfer of 100 GB. So if I reduce my data transfer of 100 GB to let's say 1 GB, then it is the cost of it is getting reduced. You see only 9 INR that's coming up. So what does this indicate? What do you mean by this point here? Any idea?
Estimate data transfer. Data transfer. It's using like if you say data transfer.
This is not the speed.
Uh, uh,
Now you have 32 GB of hard disk that we created in the last section, right? In the
yeah.
disk tab, you had 32 GB of data. Now,
Yeah.
if you want to copy this data,
Okay.
in
Okay.
outbound transfer rate.
Okay, if you want to
So,
see.
or you want to talk to internet and then try to download some data, then this is where it talks about. So it is one way, it is about the number of GB that I'm going to transfer outside from the outside world into my VM, or moving the data from my VM to the outside world. That is what I talk about, the data that I'm using it. So if I hover my mouse here, data prices can vary based on usage. So if I make it 10 GB, it becomes probably around $1. So this depends on how much data do you want to transfer in or transfer out. So this one most probably talks about the outbound data transfer.
Wow, you have to pay that too.
Yes, nothing is free. And then if you want to add
Let-
anything
Let's
else,
let's let's say a customer in a bank request for a statement, like let's say 6 months, last 6 months statement. Is something like that gonna take care of it too?
yes. So now when you are, that is the reason why I don't know about US, but in India, when we say I want a bank statement, they charge me.
Okay.
They charge me because the underlying infrastructure is charging the bank.
Okay.
Now, if you go to a bank, you're applying for a home loan, and then you go to a bank, and the home loan banker says that I need 6 months of your bank transactions.
Correct.
So, if you are a heavy you have heavy bank transactions. It could be 10 to 12 pages, right?
Yeah.
Now, the bank will say, okay, the infrastructure charges me amount for pulling your data from your account. So
Mhm.
it could be 100 GB what I have to pull, or let's say 10 GB what I have to pull, and they charge you 90 rupees for pulling the data. So
Okay.
the bank will charge 150 rupees from you, or let's say $100, $50 is what AWS is charging, or simply $1 is what Azure is charging. These guys will charge $5 from you to
Okay. I
make
see.
their own market pricing.
Of course.
Okay, so that is how they keep charging it.
His business. Yeah.
Okay, so now in this particular networking page, we have seen by default a virtual network is created for me. For everything, a subnet is created, public IP gets assigned. So now if I remove this public, if I say I don't want a public IP, then this cost of 303 is reduced for me. If I say none, you can see I don't have I don't have any charges at all for networking.
Oh wow.
Only when you have a public IP enabled, you would have your charges, and you would have your data outbound data transfer cost getting added.
But you need it, right?
We technically need it, yes.
Okay.
Unless you are working on an internal project where you don't want the servers to be exposed and you can manage it internally, you're the admin of this account, then you say I don't need a public IP.
At the back end. Okay.
Yeah, in general, whenever you're doing any backend transactions, we ignore the public IP. Whereas in reality, we look at we create a public IP for every work what we do.
So I got a question.
Go ahead.
So they wouldn't charge you for the traffic that's going, amongst your servers internally?
No, they will not charge you because they are using they are using their internal networks.
Use it
See, they are
to
giving you
charge
this.
for the
They
IO?
are no, yeah. I'll explain you there. They are giving you this infrastructure for using it, right?
Yeah.
And when you're creating multiple instances, and if they say that I charge you even for internal communications, then why will you use this platform? You are anyways charging me for the outside world, but for the internal communications, what I want to do. So why do you charge me? And when
Mm.
I talk about internal communications, I'm not talking about data transfer internally. I'm only talking about the communications across the networking protocols, wherein are you alive, are you working or not, what's happening, those kind of things, yes. But if you have thousands of GB or terabytes of data that needs to be transferred between server A to server B, then technically you will not be transferring the data using any protocols like SCP or WinSCP or whatever it is. Rather than that, you map the same storage across to the other servers so that you are not charged extra. But if
Oh,
you want to transfer data between the two servers using your private network, then they will like RCPs or SCPs, then they charge you for it.
oh,
Technically, Technically, we will not be doing it that way. Rather than that, I will just be associating this storage to the other server so that I can quickly get access there.
Yeah, using their underlying networking. So like
Yes.
okay, that makes sense.
So if you say, hey, I want to copy the data across copy minus P between two servers, then they charge for it because you are using their networking bandwidth for transferring this data. Make sense?
It makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now, in this, we have load balancers and other stuff. I'll not talk about them in the first class because we are restarting after some time. So we'll slowly get into that area. Now I'll leave everything blank as is. Then I go to management. In management, I am not doing any changes here. I just leave it as is. I go to monitoring. Again, in monitoring, I don't enable anything. I enable the basic ones that are available for me. Advanced, I'm not touching anything. Again, in your custom data, if you want to install any application while configuring or booting your VM, I can install this application. I can write a small script here so that it will go ahead and then start installing it while provisioning your servers. So right now, I'm not going to do this part. And then I say tags. So tagging is important in cloud world to understand for which purpose am I using this specific server. And then last, I do review plus create. It's going to give me a complete uh, image of what am I doing and then what is it I'm creating. It's going to print everything for me in one page, and it is also going to tell me how much am I be going to charge for this particular instance per hour. So if I say this is not even 5 cents or 10 cents for you guys.
Really?
Yes, but when you do this again, the pricing changes when I convert this into dollars. So it might be like $0.5 per hour for you, or it will not be more than that.
Okay.
So you can just go ahead, it will give you all this information, and then once you click on create, it will create this image for you and the VM is ready.
Okay.
Okay.